welcome back to the channel Capsule. Gallente here for another fleet command course, and this time we're gonna take a look at something a bit unusual, I would say, because following the scanning inspection about 6 months ago, I kind of immediately stopped doing that stuff, as I was not seeing the benefit of losing a nearly expensive ship, I would say billion worth of ISK. But at the time I don't think my Dominix was at that price tag, but anyway. And so now, especially with the advent of the tier 9 and tier 10 high-sec storyline, not storyline but regular encounters, and I thought that the risk-benefit balance was not really worth it, and so I stopped doing the storyline. I still had several scrolls and mission logs to do, but they just stayed in my anger for the last 6 months. And over the last week I kind of reflected a bit on how to overcome having a big target icon on the skin of my ship while doing the storyline, and I tried to see how I would get around that and maybe find a way to resume storyline, and then see how it would compare to the now tier 10, because I've moved with this character at deck level 10, how it would compare to the high-sec encounters in terms of ISK per hour, basically, and whether it was still worth it in there. And as you can see on the screen here, yes, I did found now through that exercise I would say a limited use for a destroyer, because everything that I will showcase today is centered around a Dragoon destroyer, and the ship choice was kind of the key to unlocking again the storyline for me. So I went back, looked back at the way scanning worked, looking at how to optimize the source radius, because it's basically that what you want to achieve. You want to avoid being scanned. One of the options is to lower your source radius so that you go below the minimum scan rate of your opponent, and that was really what I tried to focus on. So I did some tries with frigates, but I'm not a very good frigate pilot, and the fact that you needed to be so close, brawling, speed tanking, I was not so successful in applying what other content creators have put on YouTube, where you see like faction frigates do tier 10 storyline or tier 10 mission. The tier 10 mission is fairly easy, but the storyline, especially if you go for the lower tier where you have plenty of frigates and destroyers, believe me, that can be painful. It can be very difficult to tackle. And so looking back at the different ships and knowing that I wanted something which would be something with a bit more range, I immediately thought about, okay, I need a drone boat for that. And I look back at frigates, so the Worm, I looked at it, and then I stumbled on the Algos and the Dragoon, which I in the end selected the Dragoon, just because in my opinion, when you look at the inherent stat, it is more PvE oriented. The Algos is a bit more PvP-ish in my view, and when you look also at the source radius, it is slightly bigger. So I went for the Dragoon and directly built myself a Dragoon 2 Assault. And indeed, when you look at the stats, so you will get bonuses to the drone flight velocity, which is very nice, means that you will not be losing so much time in between target, and you get quite significant boost to the drone damage as you move with the advanced small drone operation skill, and you get another bonus to the drone flight velocity, which is good, as well as the tracking speed. Even though for light drone, I'm not sure this is basically an issue, as they have pretty good tracking in itself. You get a bit of Nosferatu range or nude range, but that is not really useful, as you will see, because anyway I wanted to have a kiting build, so it makes no sense to have a small Nos or a small nude on the ship, as you will be outside of the effective range. The good point is also the lower signature radius that you will get, meaning that the enemy ship, being rats or being pirates, meaning actual players, will have a hard time logging onto you. Okay, so you take a bit more time for them to log onto you, so it means you can close the distance or actually try to move away from them before they are able to lock onto you. So that's basically the ship design. So let's move into the fitting. Fitting in my hand is not yet neither optimized nor final. I tried when I started moving on, because the ship actually has a quite good power grid. When you look at it, it has a fairly good power grid. So you see with the skill, I'm at 107. Nearly everything of it has been taken, and you can see here the capacitor is quite strong as well. So I thought I would try to replicate what I've seen elsewhere in terms of the worm fitting, and try to oversize some of the missile launcher. And so that's why you see here two rapid missile launcher on the high slot. I'm not sure I'm gonna keep them, to be honest, because the orbit range is anywhere close to 40 kilometers with the drones, and so I'm outside of the effective range. You can see here I've like a 20 kilometers maximum range, and I don't want to push the orbits at that point, because for the tier 6 mission, which is what I'm going to showcase in the combat demonstration, basically the cruisers, they're going to be able to hit you, and so you will not be able to survive. So this is something I may rethink a bit the strategy. The good thing is that you get jumped upon. Well, the rapid will help you with fast moving frigate and interceptors, and so it might have a more significant role in terms of personal defense than doing the storyline. The mid slot, there's not much to say about it. It's a standard load, one web, one scram. Again, they're not going to be used in the storyline itself. I will be outside of the effective range altogether, so that's something that you can replace if you feel like it. You could put a target painter or any other stuff. The third slot is not occupied because I'm out of power grid, so I don't have any stuff to put in there at the moment. But anyway, I'm not sure what I would put there. In terms of drones, so I stayed with my standard loadout, so I try to min-max on the EM and explosive damage, so I get a fairly consistent damage profile across shields and then armor and then hull, so the DPS stays stable over the course of the ship engagement. I went with the Navy drone, so the cost an arm and leg. I paid like 25 million a piece. It's not necessary. It's really when you want to optimize the DPS, then you can consider, if you feel comfortable with the ship, then you can upgrade to faction drones. You can do with Mark 9. You will see a slight difference in DPS, like about 10 DPS per drone, so 40 in total across the board. What is on the other hand very cool with the level of skill and hull bonuses, you can see here the flight velocity of the drone, 8,000 meters per second. So it means that those drones will be able to catch up with any interceptors that you will, or you could potentially encounter if you get jumped out on. And the same goes with the Republic fleet. So they go almost at 9k in terms of speed, so very short downtime moving to a target, and a potential good protection if you get jumped on by other players. As you can see, the overall DPS 350 on the drone. That will be, I would say, not the main but the only DPS that you will be using, and about 100 with the missiles. I think I can still push the DPS of the drones, most likely around 400, a bit over 400. That would be my goal, either through nanocores or potentially to some skills. I'm not yet at expert level in one of the two drone segments, light drone segment, so I may get a bit more DPS over there. In terms of the low slots, 2 are mandatory, so that will be your small armor repair. So you can shield tank it, you can armor tank it at your leisure. You will take very little damage, but in case you have a bad pop-up for the wave or whatever, it is useful to have some form of damage restoration. So it can be shield, can be armor. Personally, I would just choose, depending on what type of opponent. For Amar, I would go armor. For the Minmata, I would go shield, and in between, choose to your liking. Even though the ship is an armor tank by design, you could do it because you will be speed tanking anyway. The other stuff which is mandatory items is the MWD, because you will be moving and orbiting at a very fast pace, and that's really the point in there. You want to be sort of speed tanking your opponent and having a very strong speed so that you can readjust distance and control the distance in between your opponent and yourself. With that one, which is a modified one, that was one of the rigs that we get from previous events. I'm running at about 1.6k meter per second, so 1600, which is plenty enough, and I'm not yet at full training. I'm not even 5.4 on the destroyer command skills, so that will grow, I think, a bit more as I level up the skill set. The 2 in between, basically, they are there for you to choose, so it gives you a bit of flexibility. If you want to go full DPS, then you can put 2 drone damage amplifier. I went for the BAT one, not the C type. That will push the DPS up a bit to about 470, 480. But it will give you hot DPS about 2/3 of the time, which brings you a bit more around 100 DPS, so you're around 560 hot DPS with that. I'm not very keen on that layout because the capacitor is a bit then lower, and when you activate actually the drone damage amplifier, it sucks up a very significant chunk of your cap, and so when you cycle them, you end up being at 30-40% in cap, and I don't like that. So that's why I did put a battery in there, so it raises up the total capacitor, and it gives me a small boost if I need, just in case I get nuded, or I don't know. It's more to reassure me, because what you will see in the combat demonstration, I didn't use it in there, but I did the first part with 2 drone damage amplifier, and I was not feeling comfortable on that setup. So that's why I reverted to something a bit in between. If you want to be more on the safe side, then you can replace the drone damage amplifier with a DCU, and that will give you a bit more resist across the board, and will give you sort of a fail-safe button that you can activate to get out of tricky situation. That's the initial layout I went with, and then I tried with the 2 BAT drone damage amplifier, and now I'm looking at something a bit in between, so to speak. But basically, I mean, those are free slot. You can arrange them as you want, but the MWD and shield or armor wrapper is a mandatory element in there. As regard the low slot, not the low slot, but the internals, those are pretty much fixed. So what you want for the engineering rigs is to go with the emission scope sharpener. So that will basically lower by 15% your source radius. and that is exactly what I wanted to achieve with that ship, is to get as low source radius as possible. And when you look at the three of them, it gives me basically a source radius of 93 meter. 93 meter. So to get detected requires already a significant investment, both into the skill point and into the scanning rigs that you would need to put on the opposing ship. If you look at a ship which don't has any specific bonus to scanning, to get detected, and I mean detected, so to get just above the minimum scan radius, you need someone which is 555 or 554, which has the Explorer scanning rig, so the most expensive one, and which would invest in getting at least 2 level 3 detection rigs, so the opposite model to the one that I finished. So that's quite an extensive layout for that. If you look on the ships which are meant for exploration, which will get a bonus to detection as soon as you get to 5.5 or 5.55, then you will get detected. But the good thing is that you will get detected, but you will get the message, because it's fairly difficult for your opponent to move his scan radius below 93 meters. I mean, someone with a 555 Explorer scanning rigs, dedicated ship, and 3 level 3 rigs for detection, that one will have a scan radius of 81, so you will get detected and not notified. And that's the only circumstances, more or less, or risk that you're taking. So it's a pretty safe bet. You will get a signal if you're being scanned, so you can warp out. You were fairly rapid warp preparation time. 4 seconds will be a bit higher because you will be running on MWD, but you could. And so that's really what I wanted to achieve. So I'm fairly happy with the layout there. Yes, I don't have anything in the engineering rigs to help with gap management or detection of detecting the rats. So it's a bit different, but believe me, it's working fine. On the drone part, you absolutely need one drone range control. So that is what will bring you to about 40-50 kilometer range, which is exactly what I wanted in terms of kiting range. And then of course I get one for the drone firepower augmenters and one for the speed augmenter, just to keep up with the DPS. But those, I mean, don't touch them. I think that they're very well where they should be. In terms of nanocore, I went cheap, so I pick up a Breeze nanocore, and I upgraded the drone EM damage. So that's basically half of my DPS that has been improved by 15%. And I will continue testing. If it's proved successful, then most likely I will invest in the purple nanocore, so that the whole DPS is increased 80%. Would be good, and maybe I will train secondary skills so that I can raise the DPS a bit more. On the overall, so the DPS, we've looked at it. Defense wise, it's a bit better having a destroyer than a frigate, because you have a bit more effective hit points, and meaning that if you get in a bad situation, you have a better HP pool to recover. So you get 2.8k in shield, and you get about 1k more in armor. And what you can see here is that basically the resist on the armor is still better than on the shield. You get a 20% in explosive, 25 in kinetic, 35 thermal, and 50 EM. So that's why personally, per default, I leave the armor wrapper in there. Capacitor wise, already touched based on it, so I get like 2 minutes in capacitor. But don't forget that this is with all module active, which never happened. Basically you will run the MWD, and with the MWD active you're cap stable. When you activate the drone damage amplifier, that will give you a small chunk of cap that will go down, but you will recuperate over time. If you have to activate the armor wrapper for a significant amount of time, then this is what the battery is for and will help. Targeting wise, you see, oops, that we can lock up to 8 units, which is good. Personally, I tend to cap at 6, so that if I get jumped upon, I still have capacity left to target the opponent immediately. I don't have to unlock, relock, because that is time consuming, and I do prefer having 6 is enough anyway for what I'm doing, and my signature radius of 43 is quite good. Again, it means that it will take a bit more time to lock onto me when in the encounter, so it will give me some time before the enemy ships can actually try to put some DPS. Okay, that's it for the fit. Only thing that I'm gonna show again is the insurance cost. So you can see here we're looking at a ship. It's quite expensive, so you're looking at 600 million. 100 million is due to the faction drone. So if you remove that and put Mark 9, you will cut the cost of the ship by a significant amount, and so it's worth about 650 insurance points at the moment. Alternative ships. I think it's important that we discuss a bit as well about alternative ships that could be used. So I went full out tier 10 Dragoon for this exercise. You could downgrade and use not the Dragoon 2 but use the lower tier. You will get a slightly higher source radius. You will get a significantly lower DPS, but I would say it's still doable. It will take you a bit more time finishing the encounters, but you will get grosso modo the same performance in terms of sustaining and being able to complete the encounters, but the time it takes will of course be slightly expanded. Alternative ships, so I said I considered frigate, so you could certainly look up at the Worm or an Astero to do the job, but there is one thing in the strategy I'm using for which both of those ships would be at a disadvantage, meaning that at the last ship in the wave I do return to orbit the encounter plot at 100 kilometers, and so I'm going outside of the control range of the drone. When I'm working with my 4 drones, I lose 1, meaning that I'm still at 75% of my DPS. If I was to take a Worm or an Astero in there, means that I would lose 50% of my DPS. So that's why the destroyer for me also is a bit better than the frigates. On the other hand, both frigates get a much higher inertia and warp preparation time, so it means that you will be able to respond faster to external threat should that happen. So it's a balance. I think that they would do great. They can reach out the same source radius around 93 as well, so it could be an alternative. As I mentioned in the intro as well, the Algos could do the trick. Simply the Algos, you will end up with a source radius of 98, so the risk you're taking is slightly higher in terms of detectability of the ship. So that's I would say my last recommendation about the ship choice and so on. What I still need to discuss a bit before going to the demonstration, the actual combat demonstration, is the overall strategy for the encounter. So it's fairly standard for drone boats. So you would warp in at 100 kilometers. You will start orbiting the encounters at 100 kilometers, and the objective of that maneuver is to get the enemy waves to thin out, so that you will get a fast tackle that will move forward to you, but they will need to orbit and follow your orbits, and so they will move into a line in a way, while the slower ship will just move slower, and you will get not a a pack, but you will get ships extended over sort of a line. Once that happens, then you can start moving downwards to the ship and start engaging, orbiting one at 40, the one which is closest, of course, and then moving to the next one. Only the tackle you should engage if, while you are still orbiting the incandescent point, they are starting to move within your engagement range. So basically, if they are below 50 kilometers, then you can launch the drones and they will dispatch them. So that's fairly easy. The trick is, at the end of the wave, the last ship, you need to leave a cruiser in and launch the drone, and then move back to orbiting at 100 kilometers under your MWD. You don't shut off the MWD at all during the encounters. You sort of slightly speed tanking in there. And once you're back on your orbit, you let the drone finish. It will take a bit longer because you will have only 3 drones after the 4, and then rinse and repeat. The next wave spawns. If you see that it's a bad spawn, just warp out, warp in, and restart the wave. But the stuff is exactly the same. You orbit at 100 kilometers. You let the wave spawn and thin in a line or in an arc, depending, and then you move in and engage the ship one by one. Always pay attention to what is the next closest ship that I need to engage, and once you see that the ship you are firing upon is nearing the end of its life, then you shift to the next one and start orbiting 40-45. I wouldn't go into orbiting too close to the maximum range, because you will overshoot. At least I do. It might be something with my skill level at the moment, as I don't have a very significant destroyer command skill. But the ship as it is now is slightly overshooting, so I'm more orbiting around 45-44 kilometers, with my max range being 48, than going to 46 or 47. Just for that, because otherwise then you overshoot slightly, one drone drops, and you lose some DPS in that engagement before you move to the next one. So that's it for me. Hope you will find this video useful. If so, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to be notified of upcoming video. I will certainly continue working on the storyline. What I'm going to showcase is tier 6. I will certainly try that chip on tier 8 to see how it behaves and how much time it takes for those encounters. In the meantime, fly safe, enjoy the game, and see you in the next video.